the new. In terms of the world brought to a listener on YouTube and on Facebook, where we can watch with amazement, with shock, the repeated abuses of common people by the state through the agencies of police departments and sheriff's departments around the country. This is something that we think perhaps may be overstated just a bit here in Chattanooga. After all, we don't have a Philandro Castillo case here. We don't have other cases that have received great media attention here. So the problem is really elsewhere. And the problem is not fundamentally here because we don't have it in the headline. We don't have angry moms and dads bellowing into microphones of mass media declaring that the clearing of the officer in the death of a son or daughter is itself a crime. We don't have that here. We see it taking place remotely. And so we think that we can just not worry too much about it. But if the fundamental structures of the state are operating in local economy, the free market in Chattanooga, then we have to say there is the prospect of violent death, violent summary executions of people who have done nothing worthy of death. They've done no crime, they've performed no crime that deserves the death sentence. I'm sure you, my listener, would agree that some crimes deserve the death sentence. Now, whether you have a biblical list or one that you've drawn from your sociology class at the university will have a different list. Yours are probably a lot shorter than mine. But nonetheless, there are some things that we would agree are worthy of death. And that, let's just say we can all agree on murder, right? Murder is a lawless killing. And if someone kills lawlessly outside the law, outside of sanction, outside, say, of self-defense, then that death has to be compensated for, and there can't be a financial compensation for a death like that with intent. It can only be the death of the person who committed the murder. And so the death of that perpetrator is called for and expected. And I would say it should be a public event. It should be a mourning holiday when there is an execution of someone who has committed a crime worthy of death. And everybody should be there. In the old republic, in the old Hebrew republic, the execution of the criminal was first by the witness threw the first stone, and everybody in the town threw stones atop the killer or the murderer or the idolater, and he was then buried under the judgment of everyone in the city. Everyone has a hand in the execution. In the end, though, certainly those who throw the last few stones on a pile and is buried, their act is just symbolic and not actually effective in the death of the murderer or the rapist. But it is to be something done by the community. The point I'm making is that we agree that some things are worthy of death. Now, how is it that we have men under Chief Fred Fletcher who have the authority for extrajudicial, statutorily permitted summary execution? That is a power that they all have. There are 500 people employed by city government who are city employees. City employees in Chattanooga have and have exercised many times this terrific and powerful authority. And the question of the legal authority to do that by a city corporation is another question, but one I think that we've raised here on the David Tulis Show. And I'm glad you're giving me just a couple minutes of your time. And I'm thinking of City of Chattanooga versus Davis, City of Chattanooga versus Myers, that insist in great detail that cities have civil authority only. They don't have criminal authority. And yet that is a live question today. No media outlet has thought it worth thinking about, though I have given it extensive coverage and thought a good bit about what could be meant by the root cause of this analysis, which is the Constitution's $50 fine clause, which forbids any fine past $50, and which denies effectively cities the power to perform capital punishment. Okay, that's effectively what that clause means, and it's a very rare one in or among state constitutions across the United States. It is a rare provision indeed of very unclear origins, the judges say in their writings about it. But there it is, and it limits the exercise of power, the exercise of force by municipal corporations, and this is an unsettled issue. Okay, it's an unsettled issue, and there's one plaintiff defendant who's raising the question, but we're going to pass on now and just assume provisionally that authority exists. Okay, let's just assume that it's a lawful power that city employees in Chattanooga can execute people if those people do the wrong thing, right? If they do something which the training of the officer directs that person to be slain, and we have many examples of this kind of killing. And I, you might say, well, David, you're making a big deal out of this, and why don't you just let it go? Well, I don't want to let it go because for you, my listener, to have a better local economy and a freer market, you need to have a sense that you belong here, and that you have a right to be here, and that even if you're standing on your rights, let's say in a confrontation, that you don't have to fear for your life, right? We don't need to be fearing for our lives when confronting an officer. Now, there's a video on USA Today that I'll be posting in an upcoming text about the use of unmarked police cars. This is another question that I have, and I'll probably need today or the next day or two to talk with Phil Noblett, the city attorney. I've asked him, the deputy city attorney, I've asked him, what is the authority for Chattanooga Police Department to stop women in their cars, in police cars that are unmarked? How is that possible? How is that safe? What about the fear for my life threat that poses? It's a threat. If a woman driving in a car has another car behind her with hidden lights, right? Lights that are invisible from the outside, a car that does not look like a police car, does not look like any car in public service, and is pulling her on the side of a road, whether it's busy or not busy is maybe part of the point, maybe relevant, maybe not. Is her life in danger? And the woman, USA Today, is weeping. She was weeping in relief and terror because she had been pulled over by an officer for driving under the speed limit. And the officer said he stopped her because he was concerned for her, right? It was a safety check. And she said that when she was being pulled over, she froze in terror. She was and then she began weeping in fear. Now, that fear possesses the breasts of many people in Chattanooga, and many of these people many of these people have breasts that are black, and these are black people, the former slaves in this country. They are the ones managed, if you will, by the policing function. And the question that I'm starting to ask myself is, on this question is whether or not policing intimidates or coerces the civilian population. Does it do that? And does policing influence the policy of a unit of government? Those are two important questions that I think we need to ask. And here in the unmarked car story and in the summary execution story that we are seeing across the country, what does the chief of police say? What does he say? Does he care about these things? Do we need to change the training protocols for cadets? Sergio Valdovinos was a man schizophrenic. He was, according to Jack Burns writing a couple days ago, about an event Friday, he was slain by 8 bullets. He was known to police in Madera, California. He was 32 years old, mentally ill. Police say he was swinging a stick at them, and they'd been out to his house at least 50 times in the past 2 years. He reportedly suffered from schizophrenia for years. Jack says his mother had tried to get him help, but to no avail. And there's a video that shows the SWAT team at his house in line formation, turning the corner around the garage and engaging Sergio Valdovinos. After commands were given and apparently ignored, police opened fire, killing him with 8 quick shots. And Stephen Frazier, the Madera police chief, says, this is not what Madera Police Department wants to happen. He said that on a table, he shows a large stick and screwdrivers and a makeshift shield that was made with a griddle, reportedly taken off Sergio's person before police shot and killed him. We've been out there before where he's threatening us with machetes and knives, the chief says. Sergio began swinging the stick at our officers. The officer that was closest to him ended up firing 8 rounds to defend himself from getting struck by the stick. And when asked what level of force is appropriate, he responded by saying that the team had to neutralize the threat and that there was little time to contemplate whether the force